Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
I'm Catherine White. I'm your host of the weekly Friday Power Lunch, the show that's bringing you the guests, the issues, the action in one big room, because we are amplifying the voice of the grassroots to get things done, to make politics fun and kick some ass, right? That's what I'm thinking. All right, it is May 6th. The theme for today's show is Sifting Through the Noise, Understanding Voters. And so I am so happy to welcome our guest for today. Let's bring them up one at a time to say hello and have a little chitty chit today. Hello, Jonathan TEUBNER, founder and CEO of FilterLabs AI. What's going on in your neck of the woods? Where are you broadcasting from, as we say?
Hi, I'm talking to you all from Cambridge, Massachusetts, in my office here in Harvard Square.
Nice. I know you're a world traveler, so I am glad, from Oklahoma and got graduate school across Europe. You are really what we call well-traveled. And so we're so excited to hear from you today about how we do sift through this noise.
Well, I'm excited to be with all of you and tell you about what we're seeing, particularly in Virginia. And we have some interesting stuff that we've seen on the abortion issue that we could talk about at one point. Yeah.
I would love it. We love to be up to date. Yeah. So I love that. So why don't we bring your partner in crime up, LYNLEE THORNE, Political Director of Rural GroundGame. It's so great to see you and a lot of people in the room. I see a lot of the Rural GroundGame folks in the room. Hi to Jenny Kitchen. I also see Trudy Berry. I feel like romper room, like, hi friends. Hi, LYNLEE.
Hey, so good to see you. Hi, Jonathan. Yeah, really excited to talk about Jonathan's work and its relevance here in Virginia and hopefully across the country, and really want to emphasize the timing here and how important it is for us to have access to resources like the work that Jonathan's doing as we move forward, because 22 is important, but we only have 914 days until the 2024 election, and rural Democrats in particular have a very distinct and significant role to play in every single day from now up until that day.
Well, we love it. We love always seeing you from the Shenandoah near Harrisonburg. What I love about the Power Lunch, it just brings us all together in the room to discuss. So I'm so glad, LYNLEE, that you're in the room and the work you're doing. We have really, really tried to empower this work. It is so important. And next up, everybody knows this, a champion of women's rights and just also civil rights. You name it, racial justice. We have the founder and executive director, ANDREA MILLER, Center for Common Ground and Reclaim Our Vote. It's always pleasure and empowering to see you, ANDREA.
Hey, it is always great to see you and the entire Network Nova crew. This is really, really neat. I see some of my Democracy Center leaders here. This is great. I see a lot of names that I know from a lot of years of working around politics in Virginia.
Yeah, I see Frank's in the room.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank.
And Melissa.
I love it. Frank, we had a good time down in Virginia Beach when we brought the Women's Summit down there. One of my highlights was really getting to know your partner in crime with doing such great work. We went out to dinner with a bunch of us and we had a good time, right, Frank? And I'm looking forward to working with you all again. So super, that's the way we do it. We build these friendships and partnerships. So I'm so glad your team's in the room. They're doing great work. So we are stoked. Fennell is going to do that piece with you today to find out what you're doing through Reclaim Our Vote and Common Ground. And maybe you'll touch on the democracy centers, I hope. So thank you, ANDREA. And lastly, but nowhere leastly, we have MAKYA Little here. She's running for District 19 in 2023. MAKYA, yes. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you again for this invitation. I am broadcasting to you from the new 19th.
Woohoo! So tell people where that is real quick.
Absolutely. So the new 19th district is basically southern eastern Fairfax and northeastern Woodbridge, everything east of 95 from Fort Belvoir down to Woodbridge.
Yeah, I was excited to figure out when we talked how close you were to me. And I love your background. I want to come over for this buffet you're having. I love the art behind you. Is that something that you've collected, or what is that beautiful piece?
It is, and thank you for asking. It's actually a piece of Black art that I have yet to hang on my wall, but the name of it is actually Identity Crisis. And so it resonates with me as an African-American woman a lot, especially based on my lived experience.
Yes, well, we'll be sifting through that noise, as we say, and I love it. And what you'll be serving up on those plates, we'll be so excited to talk to you. You're a great candidate, but your story is also very compelling, and how you got on this journey. So I'm so excited you're here, and thank you so much for that opportunity to just chat with you later. So that's awesome.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so are you excited? I hope you're just perked up. I hope you have your coffee and maybe your fabulous cup in front of you. Just remember the rules of the road in the room is the chat is yours. Have fun with it, communicate, and also let people know what you're working on, especially now with the Supreme Court thing. And we know our work is never ending. But if you have, I know there's events tonight happening downtown in DC for education. We cannot forget about Stand Up and Deliver for education. So please share that. And then you can stay for the after chat. We will share even more, and we can, kind of, what we do is we sort of go in our private room in the after chat. We just let loose and we talk. So we hope you stay around for that, but keep the chat civil. If not, we have the bouncer up there, Stare. You can see her. She's pretty mean looking. She's going to kick you out. All right. And, our favorite part to let you know about the work we do every week also needs your support. So I want to say thank you for the bottom of our heart for those of you that have decided to become patrons of the show. And if anybody else wants to learn more, we're going to put the link in there. You could subscribe, very small, $5 a month, $10 a month. And you also get special benefits. And speaking of special benefits, did anybody get a little Prezi in the mail? If you're a patron, you may have received something. If you have, show it. If you're not, it's on the way. And I'm not going to say what it is, but it's good. So we do thank you for that support. It just means so much to us. So that is super. And a little business announcement. Next week, May 13th, we are going to take a day off to work. We are going to be working on the Women's Summit that is coming up. It's the 6th annual, and we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, we're taking a day off, a week off, because we got to power up and we got to get our agenda set. So we hope you'll use next Friday to do some action, and we will be back in the pocket May 20th with Planned Parenthood and some real powerful speakers on that day. So don't forget, come back May 20th. All right. I would love to say that we need to chitty chat, and I would love to bring up co-host Fennell Norton, show messenger. Hi, Fennell. How is Chesapeake, the Eastern Shore, holding up today? Is it raining there?
No, it's not raining, but we don't have any sunshine. So there's no sunshine today, but that's okay, because I can bring my own sunshine.
You will bring your own sunshine. I do want to talk about what's going on right now. We love to talk about current news together. Robin, if you don't mind putting up the piece that we found about the abortion.
John Roberts and his court are spitting in our faces right now. He's all about the integrity of the court, but not about women's integrity. And I tell jokes, but this court is a joke.
This movement will not stop. Yes. We are just getting started. Yes. And we will not turn back. Bless us. We are weary. We are mad as hell.
But this is not just a women's issue. This is a human issue for access for all of us to finally have the right to be who we are, who we love, and feel free on this land that we walk and tread.
While this is a draft decision, we have to continue to fight, to engage, to be heard, and to let the Supreme Court know that we will never go back.
In doing so, not only are they rolling back fundamental rights for women and for minorities, but they are signaling that they will act with odious disregard for precedent and years of progress and expanded rights, including marriage equality and protections for minorities and people of color. What's next?
Yeah, that's so interesting because the day that this news came out, I think that most people sort of lost their breath for just a moment. You just sort of, and then you can see in that clip the exhale, which is really anger, but I think a lot of fear too about what's next. And I think if I could just keep going for a moment, what I thought about with this is, really what is next? We've got voting rights, we've got civil rights, we've got gay rights, gay marriage. We've got all of these things, and you have to ask yourself, what is next? And so I think that this decision or this draft pulls everybody together to say, if I was only thinking about one issue, now I can see that it is all of us. And I think that's what's important about this week.
Yeah, and I saw that already happening when I went downtown. And actually what was cool that my neighbors actually called me to go downtown. And that was like, that was really new. Usually I'm calling people to do something with me and they called me. So I think that it really has awoken a amount of just this. I hope we can build this huge coalition because it's so many things. And, this argument that it should go back to the states, we know that's just garbage argument, because when we see what happens in the states and Louisiana is so egregious and so disgusting and so awful that, it's dystopian. So we can't allow different states to make different rules about women. We should be free everywhere. So it's a ridiculous argument that states should be deciding on this according to who's ever elected in the moment. Correct?
Yeah, this is right. So this is why this is a reason why all along, all of these things have been so frightening to me. So as we know that we've not talked about history, so folks will say, oh, well, the Civil War was because of states' rights. Well, it was the states' rights to have slaves and, live off the backs of other human beings. And so I think when you think about this, in Louisiana, I'm pretty sure that's the state that someone said recently that an abortion should be considered homicide. I mean, so when you get to this kind of ridiculousness, it really does stoke fear in what's next. And so I hope this is a galvanizing moment, because this isn't just Democrats or Republicans. This is all of us, anybody who, has a bit of a brain.
Right. And everybody that's in this room, we know, I see a lot of long-term champions of women's rights here. It's, I don't think maybe we would have thought we'd seen this day, but as we said, and you remarked the other day, we did see, everybody saw this day coming. And here it is. So we will make sure that we need to show up, more than just show up in 2022. So with that, we need to get to our first guest. I'm excited because we are going to sift through this noise and get to really understanding voters and around folks like Jonathan TEUBNER that does that very well in a way that's unique. Talk about artificial intelligence or digital, just really, you used your work in foreign intelligence to understand, even in Ukraine, what's happening in people's minds. You can really get at it. So Jonathan, let's start in the room. You are the CEO and founder of FilterLabs, and you use this 21st century approach to conducting all this research and ideas about what people are thinking in real time. Let's talk about, here you are, born in Oklahoma, graduate school, over in Berlin, having a cup of coffee, Trump's elected. You are just starting to really think about what is happening, what are people thinking, and just the quick leap from that to what you created in this digital FilterLabs space to help people understand what people are thinking.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks again for the chance to talk to you all about this. Yeah, so that was kind of the context of where I was kind of like puzzled when I was living in Berlin about like just what was going on in the US around this. Being from Oklahoma, I was just like, kind of interested in that to get at that, and realized that there's really no like obvious way or like kind of product that I could go and log on to say, like, what do people think about in my little small town, or what is like the town over? And like just knowing that those differences mattered, actually, the difference between the capital city of Oklahoma City or even the second city of Tulsa and the small towns. Those are really important. And thinking like, oh, and then realizing that what we had done when I was a faculty member at the University of Virginia to help us understand like what people thought in Lahore, Pakistan, was like, oh, this was like something we could like do right now, is like figure out what these community conversations on, who are the people who care about it on this like what we call hyper local level. Like, what is this neighborhood about? It's not just about like the state or like a general county understanding. It's getting down to, because the differences of one neighborhood versus another are significant, and the issues are significant for both of them equally, and we need to try to understand them, even though, you know, we sometimes try to aggregate everything together.
So tell us about the difference. Like a lot of us will say polling, surveys, you know, campaigns, they'll say that they'll be stuck then in some of the data they are getting. What makes you different? What do you do with this kind of intelligence you're using and collecting? And how do you really filter through it then to make that actionable for certain groups that need it?
So one way that we do it is kind of like, what are we looking at when we're trying to get this information? We're looking at these kind of community organizations, what people are saying there, what people are saying in their local newspaper, what even like churches are preaching and religious institutions are preaching that week. And kind of we look at all of that information in a very specific community to understand what they care about there. And then we kind of, because we're using artificial intelligence and some of these newer techniques, we're able to kind of turn that into a more general picture just to the extent that you want it, or if you want that like great granularity on it. So that's like the main thing that we kind of look at, but really how we kind of see ourselves in the, and kind of, and LYNLEE can talk a little bit more about the use of it, is kind of this alternative to polling that's available to campaigns and locations that it's expensive to do that. And it's a one-time snapshot. Whereas the data that we're coming in is coming in at real time. So every time you want to like, you want to know something, you just like click on it and update the data and you figure it out. So one way that we talked about, and I think this came through in maybe some of your materials, was that, you know, we think about it like this, like if you could take your district and turn it into a focus group that you could ask them follow-up questions and figure out really what they're thinking on an issue. That's what we're kind of allowing people to do, and doing it in such a way that even the smallest state district campaign can have good data. And this is the revolution that we think that is going on out there, and we're kind of at the forefront of it. Like I said, we work in kind of helping people counter Russian propaganda right now. It's a big line of our work, and other things we're doing is saying that you can know that. You can do that. You don't need to be that multi-million-dollar funded campaign. These tools are available for you and your campaign. And that's what we're particularly a partnership, which we really value, is with Rural GroundGame, is, you know, kind of helping us bring this into Virginia.
Right. And so before we pop over to LYNLEE, which I'm excited to get started with to really see how it's utilized, is what are some of the challenges or maybe even advantages? We talked about the importance of pivoting. Let's use an example of this past campaign in Virginia where a candidate could really stuck on wrong information and not be able to pivot quickly, you know, and not really understanding what's going on in real time.
Yeah, so that's kind of the value of just having something that is more real time, that, you know, even a focus group that you can ask that follow-up question to that group, that cohort, they're just there for that day, right? They're gone. And or the polling is a one-time snapshot, which can be good, but it's expensive and it goes quickly out of date, the information that you're getting. So when you put a poll in the field and you get something, you decide on a message, how do you know that your particular messaging is having an impact? And so some of what we're doing with groups now is letting them see in real impact, so that if they've decided they got some information from their poll and they're going to put some messaging out there, maybe, you know, however they're doing it, whether it's in social or traditional media buys, and they're going to want to see that impact. Is it working? They shouldn't have to wait until the next time they put a lot of money on the table to understand that. They should be able to know very quickly so that they can preserve their resources, pivot, and find that message that really does work. It's also understanding messages at the local level. Your general message that you're putting a lot of money into isn't always going to work in every neighborhood in every part of your district, and being able to segment that more particularly.
I think that is really powerful. And that's the part that I'm so glad you got across, because I think people need to really understand that. How cool is that you can see that? And when your message, we're talking about messaging and amplifying, to really then know, is it resonating? Is it working? So that's really important. So LYNLEE, let's pitch it over to you. It's funny because the puppy came in and just tickled my feet. So I just, so sorry if I was distracted for a minute. Anyways, let's talk about Rural GroundGame and how are you working with Jonathan? Tell us how this in real time is working for you and for Rural GroundGame. How are you utilizing it?
So, I mean, this is a new tool for us, but some of the things that Jonathan touched on, getting good data for rural communities doing this work is just it's not accessible. We can't afford to do a $20,000 poll every single month to get continued snapshots of what's going on in our communities. So we feel like this fills a really essential gap in our tether and our connection to our communities and having a really well-founded understanding of what's going on. So I think, something that I'm going to just own is our words that have come out of my mouth, because, in campaign world, we tell people yard signs don't vote. Typically campaigns hate postcards. And the reason for that is that we aren't seeing the response, right? We don't know how many eyeballs landed on those yard signs, and we don't know how people felt about them when they saw them. So something I'm really excited about with Filter is that as we are putting messaging out into the world on radio and targeted digital and yard signs and billboards and newspaper ads and these other pieces, is that if we are tracking that sentiment consistently and in a very localized way, the way that Filter is capable of doing, we're then able to see finally, like hard data, the impact of that messaging that we're putting out into the world. And something that we like to kind of do through Rural GroundGame is kind of be a buffer. Not news to anyone here, but the Democratic Party brand is a little bit toxic in rural communities. So something that we can offer is some values-centered and policy messaging with that Rural GroundGame kind of buffer. And if there's a message that doesn't really land, then the party and our candidates and local committees aren't necessarily having to carry that. But we're able to then point to things that work really well and say, hey, take this and run. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. We want to make sure that people feel really good about the investments that we make when we are, putting money behind paid messaging, and that people feel really more confident about what it is that we're communicating, and not just what we're communicating, but how we're saying it. A lot of the time, the things that we're fighting for as Democrats are similarly aligned across geography. Mm-hmm. And much love to our many friends in metro areas, but sometimes the way y'all talk about issues can actually cause us harm when we're fighting for the exact same things in rural communities. So we want to be better at crafting that message and ensuring that there is a clear, strong rural voice for Democrats in rural communities that really connects and has an impact.
Well, it seems so important too. One is the affordability for campaigns and all that. Do you have an example that you've, when working, I know you've been working a lot with the unions and working with these signs that you've been putting out. Do you have a practical thing you can share that where this has helped you recently, or are you still in the early part of this journey with using?
We're still looking at that. But we have taken a very specific focus on labor because we are seeing all of this really, really hopeful movement. And so part of this is, me reaching out to labor leaders across Virginia, asking like what kind of calls they're getting, particularly in rural communities. And I'm very pleased to let everyone know that they are getting a ton of calls from a lot of different folks, from, rural convenience stores and manufacturing plants, grocery stores and other places. So we continue to look at that at the moment by congressional district, which is, obviously a larger region, but with the awareness that there's a capability to break that down even further and get a lot more local with this information.
Right.
Actually, I think Jonathan has a really good example from Austin, Texas, which was something that we found really impactful around a ballot initiative that they had there. You could really see the transition in messaging and how that shifted over the course of this one campaign. So the piece that you talked about pivoting was a great place there, where they were trying to make an argument to not give, I think, Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, where they were not wanting to increase funding for local police. And actually we're trying to make a safety argument initially, which I think was not landing really well. And then the firefighters showed up and kind of assisted in making an argument to say that actually this hurts our budget. And that was kind of the moment where you can see in the hard data that sentiment shifted. They were able to win that initiative.
Jonathan, do you have any more about that?
Well, we're working on this around proposition in Austin, Texas in last November came onto the ballot. And what we were seeing was the people who were trying to pass this and push a lot more money towards the police were kind of trying to tell people this was about safety. Like, this is going to make your community safer. And so the group that was trying to defeat this was wondering, do we try to go out and convince people, no, this doesn't make you more safe, and try to just counter that message? Or is there another message they could latch onto? And when we looked through the data, what we were seeing, that people were actually very concerned about the budgetary impact of this. And so, and that correlated very tightly with, as people were negative about the budgetary impact, they were more negative toward the proposition itself. And so once we made that connection, that could be direct advice to say, actually, make it about the budget. It finds a way within this context to be able to speak to some people who are maybe right of center as well about this, to like find those people. And they defeated this, I think it was 68-32 in Austin. And part of that story was, as LYNLEE said, getting firefighters to say, hey, this is going to cut our budget too.
Well, it reminds me, and I don't know if you have any data on this, in Virginia with the governor right now, we still don't have a budget. It has a lot to do with his whole run on cutting taxes, cutting the gas tax, cutting all this, and just to appeal to voters. But when he hit the budget numbers, then instead of saying we don't care about Democrats, they can frame it as, well, Democrats don't care about everyday working class people's cost at the pumps or all this. The reality is, there's a real fiscal responsibility that the Democrats have owned for a very long time and understand our bond rating in our state. So is that something, when you're talking about how we can take, look at those messages, did you do any work around that? But you may understand what I'm talking about with what was happening in Virginia.
We did some of that stuff definitely last fall. We were looking at this around the races, about kind of some of these issues around kind of what sometimes gets bucketed as fiscal responsibility, and how people, and then breaking it down into what areas people are most kind of sensitive to fiscal responsibility itself, such that there's a whole range of programs that fall under that people are aware that, is a budgetary outlay. And so that's where we it's kind of thinking about, like, if you have this fiscal responsibility narrative, what part of someone's real day-to-day life do you connect it with? And that's what's really important. And that's kind of what we do most of the time, is like making those connections into a person's personal life. And that's where, like, it's gonna be different. As LYNLEE was saying, like, it's going to be different from someone in the urban area versus someone in a rural area. What part of their life is really most affected by a more general theme?
Right. Well, we're sorry. Let's LYNLEE, we have a couple more minutes for wrap up. Any last thoughts about this and about what you're doing, and also this with FilterLabs, or any comments?
Yeah, I think bigger picture, The challenge is the continued wringing of hands and the feeling of despair and the like implication that rural communities are kind of a problem for Democrats to fix, which, I mean, we love our rural communities. We are here, we choose to be here for a reason, because we have great affection for our communities and want them to, you know, to succeed, but we've watched them be hollowed out for a very, very, very long time. So I think all the things that probably everyone on this call cares about and wants to fight for, we need to be able to see this picture, because I think we make a lot of really problematic assumptions about what is happening in rural communities. And we really need access to this data to better understand our communities, but then to make sure that our messaging is not coming from the cities, that we are not waiting for the national party, the state party, folks in cities to tell us what the message should be in our rural communities. We need to do that. And so part of what we're trying to do is say, look, here's the data, here's what we're seeing in your community. What are we going to say about it? Y'all live here, right? So part of what we want to do is empower people, give them this hopeful and helpful information, and make sure that we are speaking to all of these issues in a way that is sensitive and respectful of our communities and has that local voice, so that we're truly connecting. So it is a head and a heart piece. Yes. As much as we want to be data driven, the reality is voting is very emotional. And people are pissed. I'm pissed. We should all be pissed. And, you know, Republicans recognize that tapping into our emotions is a mobilizer. And I think we often jump to fix it mode. We jump to policy mode. And I want us to be there. We need to be there, because if we care about people, then caring about people means we have to have policy, and that has to have teeth, right? That has to mean something. Right. But we need to have that reflected in our messaging, and we need to feel like we know that people in Rockingham County are talking about funding our public schools. How are we talking about that with them? How are we talking about loving our neighbors and centering family values? That is our party. That is what we are about. So trying to reclaim some of those messages and say that in a way that is local, and then be able to use something like Filter and say, hey, we tested this message over the 6-week period, and we saw this shift in the conversation, and have something to point to, and then be able to recruit more candidates and say, look, here's a message that works. You want to pick it up and run? So that's the kind of thing we're looking at. Very long-term work, but it's got to start right this second. Can't say enough. 900.
So powerful for all the candidates you do help, and, you know, make sure you put your website in at your upcoming events that have been super great in the chat, so people know. But this is great information to have. So Jonathan, we have just a minute to wrap up. How do people work with you, get a hold of you? And so we see somebody like MAKYA in the room that she may say, hey, this may be interesting for me. Give just a brief, how do you start this? You know, how does it look like?
Sure, you can, thanks a lot for bringing that up. You can find us on the website. There's a contact form there. That's how a lot of people come and find us. There's any way you can find us on social media. Any way you can find me. Always be excited about kind of connecting you and your campaigns with resources we have. This is a part of our mission to serve your campaigns, and we want to do that in a way that works for you. Also, just to put it out there, we want to also be working with you and all your groups, not just in election years. These are things that we're going to do between those calendar years, and we're dedicated to being on this. When people stop paying attention, and the press is not writing about your campaigns, we want you to be doing the work and helping you connect with voters in the off years too.
Oh, that's because we should be doing voter outreach year round. So thank you for reminding of all the good points. LYNLEE, your powerful voice in the room is always just such a pleasure. So thank you both for being here. I'm very excited to hand it over to the next segment with Fennell and Andrea. And I want to remind people, I see Irene has her hand up. We will do hands up in the after chat, because we want to hear from you and we want to hear what you have to say about this. So we'll look forward to that. And if anybody, again, Friday Power Lunch mugs, show your mug if you have it. Exciting. Anyways, Fennell.
Yeah,
Go right
thank
ahead.
you. Well, thank you. I think that was a really awesome segment. What I would say is that we're always looking for a silver bullet, but maybe this isn't a silver bullet, but I think it's pretty darn close when you think about the opportunity to sort of reframe the narratives on how we should be talking to different groups of people. So that's pretty exciting.
So remember, the hands up in the after chat, just so you know, Eileen, I know she is lined up already to get in there and talk, which I love it. Anyways, but we'll do that in the after chat. So save that for after 1 o'clock. All right, go ahead, Fennell.
All right, Andrea, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm waiting. Here we go. Hi, Andrea. So happy to get a chance to chat with you today. So you're not new to this, and so this is old school for you. But I want, for those who are in the audience who don't understand exactly what you do, let's talk a little bit about what you do. And there are a couple of really specific things that I want to talk about. So let's talk about what you do with Centers for Common Ground and outreach and Reclaim Our Vote. So where do you want to start?
Well, I'll start with the basics of what we do. Our specialty is we do GOTV work with community of color voters. So that means we are working with Black, Hispanic, AA, NHPI voters, and Native American voters. And we get very, very specific when we do our outreach in their communities, especially where we have democracy centers, because our democracy centers have literally talked to or surveyed people in the community to find out what the pain points are. So we don't tell them why they're voting. We ask them what's hurting in your community or what would help. And then we build our scripts, texting, phone banks, postcards around what the community said we want, or this is hurting us and we need it to stop.
You know, that's pretty awesome. One of the things when I was preparing for this conversation, I had some information on why people don't vote. And we're talking about the groups of people that you just talked about, low propensity voters, folks who don't vote at all. And there are a couple of really specific reasons why this work is so important and why people don't vote. Can you talk about that for just a little bit?
Well, we work in 9 states and we worked in Georgia in 2020. The Atlanta NAACP did a survey of people, Black voters, who did not vote in 2020. And the 3 most frequent answers were really, really surprising and convinced us we really have to keep doing what we're doing. The number one reason people gave for not voting in Georgia in 2020 was they didn't know where the voting was. So remember, when I was growing up, my parents voted at the same place my entire life that I lived with them. It was always in the same place. It didn't move around. Voting now is kind of mobile. And then early voting is very mobile. It moves around. So we make sure that we provide a lot of information to our voters and we meet the voters where they are. So when we postcard, text, or phone bank, we give them a website and a phone number because we know many older voters don't have internet, don't use computers. Many rural voters don't have internet. So we want to give them 2 ways where if they need more information, they can immediately go and get it. The second reason given was I couldn't get there. So we are working with a new partner, Ride Share to Vote. We will help them recruit drivers to make sure that people are going to be able to get a free ride to the polls throughout our entire 45 days of early voting. And then the driver will wait and take them home. The third reason was they didn't like any of the candidates, but that was a distant third.
Wow.
That's very basic. Voters need information, especially voters that are less privileged than we are. So we look at what are the challenges to voting going to be for older voters, for rural voters of color, for low-income voters. And then we work on a solution.
That's fantastic. So I want to show a slide or two that really sort of demonstrates the value of the work and the progress of this work. So I think we'll start with slide number, let's see, I think it's slide number 7. Oh, it's number 8, number 8. So Robin, show us number 8. And Andrea, talk about this just a little bit in terms of your turnout and how important this work is.
Oh, well, this is the slide that's designed to help people sort of see the problem, where we work in communities where 55% or more of the registered voters are 1 for 3 or 0 for 3, meaning they have stopped voting. So this slide says there were roughly 12,000 BIPOC voters in the city of Roanoke. 3,500 of them didn't vote at all. They're 0 for 3, meaning in the last 3 federal elections, they weren't there. A 1 for 3 voter is normally what we would say is a presidential only voter. So we're looking at nearly 5,000 people in the Roanoke area, and then we narrowed it down to one community where it was 58% of the people didn't vote. We wanted to be able to bump those numbers up. We were really going for the non-voters. So when they were talking to them about what hurt, in many instances, communities are not looking for a solution to the problem. They at least just want to be heard and have their voice recognized that they're not crazy. They know this is a problem, and then they can begin to work on it. So we don't go into a community and tell them what their issues are. We let the community tell us.
Wow. So this is an excellent slide. And I think Jonathan, who's still here, I think that there's some work that can be done here with FilterLabs. Let's look at a slide that you really wanted to talk about, which was democracy centers, where there was a democracy center and where there wasn't. And I think that's slide number 11.
Yeah. All right. Now, one of the things that we did is a number of our democracy centers. Roanoke is the oldest one. So we've got Roanoke, Southwest Virginia, Richmond, Central Virginia. We've got Amelia, which is rural. We've got Petersburg, where 30 to 35% of the Black men in Petersburg with past felony convictions believe they can't vote. And then we've got Lynchburg. Now, on the other side where we talk about, and there were no democracy centers, Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria and Loudoun are in Northern Virginia. And as I watched the early voting numbers come in, I could see that we were having a huge problem when Roanoke outperforms Fairfax County by nearly 10 points. This is Little Roanoke, Virginia. And then when we look at Amelia County, you're going, why on earth would a rural county do that well? Well, In the cities, we normally have precincts and we normally vote in public schools that have rules about how close you can be with a firearm. When you vote in a granary, there really are no such rules. So remember, in 2021, early voting was still a very new thing. The first time everybody could early vote with no excuse was 2020. So in 2021, when we let rural Black voters know, hey, you can go vote now. You don't have to wait for that Confederate show of strength. People hightailed it out and they went and they voted. Normally in Petersburg, people are thrilled when the turnout in Petersburg is in double digits. This was the early voting turnout for the city of Petersburg.
Wow. So this is what I would say. Robin, thank you for the slides. We're short on time, but here's what I think I know, Andrea, and I think this is critical. Data is so important. We can't knock on every single door in Virginia or in any state, but we should know where to knock. And I think that this data is telling us where to knock. And I think when you sort of think about some of the other opportunities we have with pulling the data in terms of what the message should be, then we are probably on to a winning formula.
Well, if we can turn out voters who don't normally vote, and then you have voters where there's an election, they're showing up, this is how you win. You bring in those extra voters that normally aren't there.
That's right. That's right. So we've got a few other, no, this is really what I want to know. So reclaim our vote. So yes. I don't know if you'll have these statistics, but I am so curious to know how many folks actually reclaimed their vote in this last election. And so do you guys track that information? Because if we know who to go to, we certainly want to go knock on those doors.
We have not done that analysis. We got so busy getting ready for the 2022 midterms. So we did a ton of analysis on 2020. In 2021, we're just now analyzing all that data now. 2021 in Virginia was the weirdest election I have ever seen. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Andrea, weird is one word. Let's add it to the pile.
So, Andrea, any calls to action? What is it that all of us on the phone today, what is the one thing that we can go and start doing?
Go to centerforcommonground.org, go to the action section, and whatever moves you. You can write postcards, you can send text messages, and or you can make phone calls. We are not doing a lot of work in Virginia now. Virginia doesn't have very many congressional primaries. So we will begin our work earnestly in Virginia for the general in August. We start very early. Remember, we have 45 days of early voting. So you want to let people know, and you don't want to contact them the day before early voting starts.
And just one final thing, Andrea, at the website, there's other information and statistics that we can grab.
No, we are working on a huge set of statistics, which would make people that work with me in banking proud. So we are building a whole statistical set. We want to make it attractive and engaging, and that's a little bit hard to do sometimes with statistics.
That's okay. We'll wait for it. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you, Andrea. Talk about a change maker. In my background, I'm playing a little bit of Chris Matthews We're going to talk real briefly about the Women's Summit, 6th annual. That is, we're launching our preview today because we're going to go live this week. And we want everybody in this room to sign up. It's going to be so exciting because we will have Chris Matthews at our event. So we're very excited. So all in to win. Women's Summit 2022. What does that mean? I hope you're all in. We think that's a great theme. We're all in for the rural ground game. We're all in for democracy, all in for women's reproductive rights. And really, this isn't a complete list, sort of like the Constitution. All of our things we're all in for. It's just the list is so long. But we hope that you guys will just love it. Thank you, Dennis, for this great all-in background. And let's look at the dates. Northern Virginia, June 24th and 25th. We will be at the Annandale area, Northern Virginia Community Campus, kicking off in the morning. We'll have a great big festival of fun. So we hope that you guys will put it on your calendar right now. June 25th, Saturday, and June 24th, we'll probably have a little mixer where we can just hang out and meet up near the hotel. Then my favorite, Shenandoah, out there with LYNLEE and the Rural GroundGame, who's our partner. August 12th and 13th, we are going to be in Stanton and Waynesboro and the Shenandoah Valley. Friday night, we will be at Basic City Beer, going into Saturday at Bold Rock Brewery right by Wintergreen. And we hope set the dates now because, as Jenny Kitchen and I said, that is going to be big and fun. And I think it will just be so exciting. And what do we got next up? Our last one is September because we are going to be looking at the Tidewater 757. We'll be down there like we were last year. September 16th and 18th, we're looking at a big ability to get out on, hit some doors too. So we extended that all the way to Sunday. Now, the biggest, most exciting part of the Women's Summit, every year we also like to do something. Think of something that really is important to do this year. And this is to build an all-in community that we can access all year round. And it could be just for our group, just like if you had a private Facebook group. But what's great about this all-in private Virginia grassroots community, we're going to launch it with the Women's Summit. So ticket holders and our partners and sponsors will be part of this community. It is really cool. A lot of all our programming that will be online will be found inside this community. And it's just, when you become a member, you can network with other members. So just think about what Facebook's like, Twitter, Slack, all in one place. And so it's going to be all in one place for the Women's Summit. And that's really going to be a great feature because we need to make sure that we have a way to communicate outside of Facebook, Twitter, and these social media spots that are not reliable and, let's say, run by billionaires. So we're going to be the billionaires and we're going to run this. And we hope this is really a cool feature this year. And we're really excited to launch it from this platform. So when you get a ticket, you'll eventually be invited to this community and you're just going to love it. And next up, ticket prices. All-in pass is $99, gets you all in on the online, the community, access to the community's grassroots network, and also to the 3 in-person events. And then Northern Virginia has a different rate. It's like $49.95 because we will be doing lunch there, and that will be a full-on, more like a full-on conference style, but festival style for us summit. And then the Shenandoah, Tidewater are all $35. That includes access to the online community and all the different kind of workshops we'll be doing and speaker programs. And also you'll be in that will get you the community all in membership. We also have summit supporters. You can help us with, we need sponsorship. So you could be a badassador. You can buy a ticket, give a ticket, and student passes we kept at $10. How about that? All right, partners. We want to have a big festival advocacy fair. Do you want a table? Be a sponsor? Let us know. Contact Sarah Calhoun. She'll put her email in there. We really want to make sure that we get back to that practice where we walk around, we can visit people's tables, see what they have up their sleeve. And if you want to be a main sponsor of the summit, go ahead and email me. So that's it. because I am very excited. So how exciting is that? We have a whole summer. This is going to be from June to election day, where we'll be able to utilize that all in community too. We'll be able to do our work. So I am so sorry to get up to almost the hour, but we're going to go as long as we need to, because we have a special person that I have to say, in some ways, it's going to sound weird, but falling in love with you, your story, you're amazing. And we just had such a great conversation about your journey. And I want the room to understand more comprehensively. This is a candidate spotlight, but I would really like to talk to you about first, how you came to run for office, but more about you, a little bit of your background, because you didn't come to this in the usual way, as we say, if there is one. So tell us about yourself, MAKYA.
Well, thank you. Oh, that is such a kind introduction. And I am a mother of 3 Prince William County public school students. I've been a resident of Woodbridge, Virginia since 1996. Military life moved me around quite a bit, but once we got to this area, I kind of settled down. But I went to high school in Fairfax County at Thomas Jefferson. So I had that commute at 14. So traffic and transportation is definitely something that I empathize with for Northern Virginia. I had 16 years of combined service with the FBI and CIA. Nice. So that national security background, Jonathan, I feel you there. But I'm also a survivor of domestic violence, and that has created its own kind of educational journey for me as I, unpack that. But I would say at the end of the day, I'm a coalition builder with a track record of turning pain into purpose to fight for others.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when we were talking about the challenges of running for office, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, your background being in the military, you weren't able to be political.
Yes, the federal government, national security professional. Hatch Act absolutely prohibits you from doing anything or partisan. So education, equity, advocacy, which is kind of what was my gateway to engaging in political structures. I was okay to do that while still being employed by the FBI. However, once I decided that this was what I was being called to do, I had to completely resign and choose this path.
Wow. I mean, and it seemed like your resume, like you said, working in the FBI space, all the government space, that you really dealt with that passion of diversity, inclusion, equity.
Yes.
Then you decide, to run for office. What really was that significant moment? You said you are a survivor of domestic violence. I know that this is difficult. This is something that may have sparked really why you want to run. Tell us about that. What was the background that really you thought, I really need to step up?
To be honest, I would say just the complete diversity of experiences that I've had over the course of my life. I just turned 40 this year, so yay. And there's something significant, I think, about the number 40. Right. But just the diversity of experiences have informed like a really unique perspective that I have that allow me to see the intersectionality of so many issues. And where education space is pretty narrowly focused, I felt like my experience could be best applied in the Virginia House of Delegates because of the diversity of issues that are ironed out and potentially solved at that level.
Yeah, I mean, when you had to go down and testify, for instance, you had to deal with the policymakers. Was there any of that kind of influence that said, I need to be the person on the other side?
Absolutely. As I said, I'm a natural coalition builder. And so even in trying to get my bill patroned by someone, I kind of started this campaign of one called Free MAKYA. And praise God, LYNLEE was like the first person who actually reached out to me on Twitter because I just felt like I was alone. And she was like, MAKYA, you're not alone. We see you.
That's powerful.
she even testified with me. So even the fact that we're on this power lunch together, I just see as divine, because I mean, 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic violence.
Yes.
And so, I've seen campaigns that people have done in the past that says everyone knows someone, but it's something that is taboo and uncomfortable for people to talk about. But our policies in Virginia make that perpetuate generations.
Right.
So 30% of Virginia's homicides were domestic violence related. Why don't our policies reflect that?
Yeah, and it's just frightening to see the layer of this abortion rights attacks, and about domestic violence, all those layers on women, the burden, it's just unbelievable that our country is on, really going on this full-on attack, that or the powers that be that kind of are controlling this. So with that in mind, your journey, you signed, now you're running, you announce, first of all, put your website in. I know we're putting it in. Beautiful website, really well done. And it's just really amazing what you have put together for not having run before. And also let's talk about the challenges though. For a new candidate, you come into this now political world and they're like, who the hell is she? What is she doing here? I haven't seen her at a meeting. What are kind of challenges in that space when you're trying to run for office? You need people to support you. You're in a primary, you're contesting somebody, and who's the new girl on the block?
And I would say that was probably one of the bigger challenges, again, because I am a coalition builder, trying to get support when there's a primary, and learning that in politics, like, no one likes to take sides until after a primary. So even the appearance of support is taboo in this space. Yes. Where I'm like, no, let's work together, let's partner, let's do these things, and like a little puppy dog, like, let's partner. And everyone's like, talk to me after your primary.
Isn't that funny? It is a challenge. And I feel like when we talk about candidate support and help and having these spaces, that we've come across this over and over again. It's not a new challenge, really, is that the primary and how people position themselves and the power of the endorsement and this and that. And so navigating that must be difficult. But have you felt some support? What's happening now for your campaign? That was the start. How are things going for you now?
So the benefit that I feel like I have is the fact that I do have a career, transferable skills that are applicable in building a campaign. I am a small business owner, so building infrastructure from the ground up is something that I feel like I can do in my sleep. But learning the new rules of the game, learning that politics is called politics for a reason, where, I was raised, my mother was a FBI agent. So fidelity, bravery, integrity isn't just something that I fell into as a professional. It was something I was groomed to embody. And so now it's like every man for himself. There is no fidelity.
No, it's different.
Everyone's scared. There's no bravery. And then the rules are what people say the rules are. And so you have to lean into your core values.
Right.
To figure out who you are as a candidate, how you're going to operate, move, and engage when there are no rules. Right. Because at the end of the day, you still have to be accountable to you and to your constituents. So how do you find that balance where you're still effective, but you're still you?
So let's talk about a really good subject also that we're going to kind of tackle at the Women's Summit too, is women of color running for office. Let's unpack that. Some of those challenges in general, you may know about, you've experienced yourself, but I was talking to some people working on this issue saying one of the big problems that for women in general to say, I'm worthy of running. And then also, but there's different challenges for women of color. Talk about that.
Yes. So fundraising, and everyone keeps telling me as a candidate, that is your number one job, raise money. And so not just as a woman, but as a Black woman, where culturally everything is about independence, being an independent Black woman, strong Black woman. And so you start to equate or connect your independence to your womanhood.
Right.
But now you're in a space where you have to ask everyone else for help.
Yes.
You have to talk to people just for money. And it's so foreign, like you have to almost, you need a therapist
Yeah.
to kind of get past those emotional self-esteem barriers to then ask for money. And typically, unfortunately, large donors don't just magically appear. You have to go meet them. You have to introduce yourself. And large donors on average raise a third less funds for Black women campaigns than they do for white women campaigns. So
and men,
and
men. I heard a story. I don't know, somebody was telling me, and I won't use names, but it was like made a call to a funder, gave a number, then one of the candidates who is candidate of color called that same funder, different number.
Yep. And I think there's something that we still kind of have inherently as a society where not only are Black women paid the least out of any demographic, we're seen as the least viable when it comes to being political candidates. And so you're already dealing with that. Am I worthy? Can I do this? All of that, what they want to call imposter syndrome, but I really believe it's more so workplace trauma, where even at TJ, always having to prove that you are talented, that you are gifted, that you belong.
Right.
And how do you carry that sense of belonging into this new space where you have no previous experience and prove to everyone who has to put their money there that you belong, that you are viable, and that you can work together and solve problems?
Well, I love it. And I think we're a little over, but it was so great. And what I want to do, everybody in the room that's left, put your Act Blue in there and ask people for money right now. Give your pitch, and then we're going to close the show.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you again for this opportunity. I really appreciate being able to introduce myself to everyone. I am running to help unify our community so that we can help solve problems that impact our shared prosperity together. And as I told my kids, if anyone asks, just say, Mommy wants to help everybody win and believes that it can happen. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. And I really want to talk to you offline too about the Women's Summit. And it sounds like you have some background in diversity training or something kind of workshop we could maybe work on.
Absolutely. Happy to partner all the time.
Like Fennell Norton, she, we helped her in her candidacy. Now we pulled her on the show. You never know what your destiny is going to be. It could be that you're going to be in media next. You never know. No, we wish you well, and we're excited about your primary. So please, everybody in the room, give it up for MAKYA Little. So awesome. And it is that time again to close the show. I should bring up the run a show, Robin, because I need to circle back. So make sure that we end the show stuff. This is it. All the links that are from today's show, don't worry, don't stress. We're going to send that to you in the recap as usual. And also, it's never too late to support our show. And those that you are patrons now, we hope that you love our little love package that we did send you. There are special benefits to supporting women. And everybody in the room, if you have your mug, hold it up. Oh, did I just say what the special gift was, Robin?
Yes, you did. And we had a new patron, a new supporter today. Welcome, Audrey Van Denberg, who's part of our Friday Family of Lunch supporters.
Well, could we say that if anybody signs up today, they can get a mug today?
You know what? I think we can.
Okay. Look at our mug. I have it every day. I love to show it, and I love to put my coffee in it, and I love to put my wine in it. No, I only do that during the power lunch. Anyways, so yeah, so super. We're so excited. We have our Badass Boutique up, and we will be putting more t-shirts up, more fun stuff up. So follow us on social media. Remember, no show next week because we will be in a work week, and I will be in Richmond also for that gala. The Senator Tester's coming, and LYNLEE and Fennell are going to be there too. And we're going to whoop it up and make sure that we get everybody together to be all in for Virginia. And there'll be more. We'll be going live with the Women's Summit 6th Annual this week. So stay tuned. You will receive the big announcement when we go live. So thank you to Robin Warner, show wizard up there, Stair Calhoun, ambassador of Buzz, and Fennell Norton, show messenger, Heidi Dragneff, social media diva, and always looking good. We can't do the show without Shamara Brown and Laura Martinez, our Zoom crew. Thank you for making it happen. And also Michelle McKinney, the newcomer chat liaison. Always lean on Michelle if you have any issues, if you're a newcomer or want to talk about the chat. And thank you to our friends of the show, our content concierges who help us make sure that we have good written word, Julie Galdo, Sally Reynolds. Thank you for everything. Let's run credits.